The champagne flutes chimed in perfect unison. A delicate, crystalline sound that masked the absolute rot beneath the surface. 100 billionaire investors, defense contractors, and politicians raised their glasses inside the grand ballroom of the Austin Defense Tech Gala. The air smelled of expensive cologne, roasted prime rib, and unearned arrogance. On the raised mahogany stage, Marcus Bennett grabbed the microphone. His chest was puffed out beneath a custom-tailored Italian tuxedo, his silver hair catching the bright stage spotlight. He threw a heavy, paternal arm around his golden boy. My older brother, Trevor. Trevor wore a smug, practice smile, adjusting his silk tie for the cameras flashing in the front row. To my son, Marcus boomed, his deep voice echoing off the crystal chandeliers and vibrating through the floorboards. The unparalleled genius who just single-handedly secured our $50 million government cyber contract. The room erupted in thunderous applause. Rich, suffocating laughter and cheers washed over the tables. Then, Marcus slowly lowered the microphone. He looked down from the stage, scanning the crowd until his eyes locked directly onto mine. His warm, paternal smile instantly dissolved into a cold, flat line. And to my daughter, he added, his voice dripping with weaponized, fake pity, a burden whose failures are her own heavy weight to carry. Laughter rippled through the crowd again. Sharper this time. I swallowed the hard lump of bile rising in my throat. I placed my half-empty glass of sparkling water onto the crisp white tablecloth. I kept my breathing perfectly steady, turned on my heel, and walked out the heavy oak doors into the warm Texas night. Let them have their applause. I was about to dismantle their entire empire, brick by agonizing brick. My name is Morgan Bennett. I am 33 years old, and for the last 10 years, I was the invisible workhorse pulling my father's cybersecurity company out of the dirt. I was the director of cyber intelligence, a title that sounded glamorous, but meant I spent 80 hours a week auditing thousands of lines of code in a windowless, heavily air-conditioned basement office. I kept the company alive while Marcus and Trevor hosted rooftop parties and golfed with state senators. 2 years prior to that gala, Marcus had walked into my cramped office, sweating through his expensive suit. He closed the door, lowered his head, and played the desperate, failing father. Marcus sat heavily in the single plastic guest chair in my office. He took off his gold Rolex and placed it on my desk. A theatrical gesture of surrender. "Morgan," he whispered, his voice cracking with expertly practiced exhaustion. "The supply chain issues. The rising server costs. They are burying us. We are missing payroll next Friday. If we default, the bank takes the house. They take everything. Trevor does not have the liquidity to help. And I have tapped every line of credit. You are the only one smart enough with your money. You are the only one I can trust." I looked at my father. I saw a man drowning, begging his daughter for a life preserver. I did not know then that he was standing in 3 inches of water, just pretending to drown to see if I would empty my pockets. I logged into my savings account. I looked at the balance I had built by driving a 10-year-old car, by skipping vacations, by cooking cheap meals every single Sunday. $250,000. The down payment for the life I wanted to build. I transferred it to his commercial holding account, binding myself to a bridge loan that would anchor me to his debt for years. The truth did not reveal itself until months later. I was running a routine, late-night packet-sniffing audit on our internal financial network, tracking outbound wire transfers to ensure our defense protocols were secure. I noticed a massive anomaly. A mysterious vendor named Apex Solutions was receiving exorbitant monthly payouts. I dug deeper into the metadata. The IP address logging into the Apex Solutions portal matched Trevor's personal home router perfectly. My stomach dropped. I pulled up the Travis County property tax records on a secondary monitor. The truth hit me like a physical blow to the chest. Apex Solutions was not a software vendor. It was the deed-holding limited liability company for Trevor's brand new $1.2 million penthouse at the Independent, the most exclusive luxury high-rise in downtown Austin. When I saw the name Apex Solutions on the property tax deed, the air left my lungs. I sat in the blue glow of my monitors at 3 o'clock in the morning, the hum of the cooling fans suddenly sounding like a deafening roar. I pulled up the architectural floor plans for the penthouse online. 4 bedrooms. Floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking Ladybird Lake. Imported Italian marble countertops. A private rooftop terrace. I stared at the photos of the luxury kitchen, and I remembered eating a stale sandwich at my desk on Thanksgiving Day, because Marcus told me the company could not afford holiday downtime. Marcus had not used my life savings to rescue a failing business. He had fraudulently diverted my $250,000 into a shell company to buy his golden boy a palace in the sky. The betrayal was not just financial. It was an act of profound emotional violence. They took my time. They took my youth. And they laughed while doing it. They bled me dry back then, assuming I was too loyal and too naive to ever check the ledger. Today, I am the one holding the scalpel. The $50 million contract they were celebrating at the gala was built on a foundation of absolute fraud. Trevor did not just steal my proprietary project architecture to claim the glory. He was dangerously, staggeringly incompetent. The software we were developing for the Department of Defense was an encrypted communications lattice. It was designed to protect active-duty military locations. It required complex, multi-layered encryption keys. Trevor, in his infinite arrogance, decided the software was running too slowly during his investor presentations. He manually deleted the primary encryption keys and hard-coded a massive, glaring backdoor into the system just so his demo interface would load faster. It was the digital equivalent of taking the steel vault door off a bank and replacing it with a screen door. When the system predictably crashed, Trevor panicked. Instead of admitting his catastrophic failure, he initiated a localized malware strike on our own servers, wiping the error logs entirely. He thought he was covering his tracks. He did not realize he had just violated 3 separate federal security mandates. Because of his reckless sabotage, the company was actively failing its stringent Department of Defense compliance audits. If the federal government discovered the vulnerability, Marcus would immediately lose his defense contractor license, face catastrophic fines, and likely face prison time. They were standing on the edge of a cliff, and they needed a scapegoat to push over the edge. I found their murder weapon buried in the corporate email archives. I intercepted a plain text email sent from Marcus directly to Trevor's private account. The words burned themselves into my retinas. Once Trevor gets the public credit for the contract, lock Morgan out of the administrative tier. We will hand her access logs to the federal auditors. Let her take the fall for the breach. They were actively framing me for corporate espionage. They were entirely willing to send their own daughter and sister to a federal penitentiary for 20 years just to protect Trevor's fragile ego and Marcus's bank account. The morning after the gala, the trap snapped shut. Or so they thought. I sat down at my desk, typed in my credentials, and the screen flashed red. Access denied. Trevor had manually changed the administrative passwords across the main network. He had locked my workstation. A few minutes later, Trevor strolled past my glass door holding a cup of artisanal coffee, wearing a smug, victorious grin. He was completely oblivious to the war he had just started. He truly believed he had severed my hands and left me defenseless. He forgot that I built the digital house he was standing in. He forgot that a master architect always leaves a back door. I packed my personal items into a small cardboard box. On my way to the elevator, I saw David, our junior audiovisual technician, getting viciously berated by Trevor in the hallway for a minor lighting mistake at the gala. Trevor's face was red, spitting insults at the kid. I walked up, handed David a personal cashier's check for $10,000, and looked him dead in the eye. Cash this today. David, walk out that front door right now and do not ever come back. This building is about to catch fire. David looked at the check, looked at Trevor, smiled, and walked out the exit without a backward glance. I drove home to my apartment, locked the deadbolt, and opened my personal, encrypted laptop. I did not need to scream at a family dinner. I did not need to cry in human resources. I needed federal agents. I used a deep-level, decentralized backdoor I had hard-coded into the Amazon Web Services environment 3 years prior. Trevor's amateur password changes meant absolutely nothing to the root architecture. I wrote a zero-trust revocation script, a piece of code designed to instantly annihilate all executive digital privileges. Then, I compiled a massive digital dossier. I packaged the wire fraud documents proving the penthouse theft, Trevor's stolen code logs, the evidence of his self-inflicted security breach, and Marcus's emails plotting to frame me. I bundled it all into a single, undeniable payload and transmitted the entire packet directly to the Department of Defense Office of the Inspector General. 72 hours later, the reckoning arrived. I sat comfortably on my living room sofa, sipping dark roast coffee, watching the live, hidden security feed from the corporate boardroom. A team of stern federal auditors, flanked by 2 heavily armed FBI agents, sat across the long mahogany table from Marcus and Trevor. Marcus was sweating profusely, dabbing his forehead with a silk handkerchief. He ordered Trevor to pull up the project architecture on the main presentation screen to prove their federal compliance. Trevor confidently stepped up to the podium and typed his credentials into the laptop. A massive red banner flashed across the projector screen. Access denied. Zero Trust Protocol initiated. Marcus shoved his son aside, his face turning purple with rage. He aggressively typed his CEO master password, fully expecting the system to bow to him. Access revoked. Account flagged for federal review. My Zero Trust script had executed flawlessly. The federal agents did not look amused. The lead auditor, a severe woman in a sharp gray suit, leaned back in her leather chair. It is not a technical glitch, Marcus, she said coldly. We received a secure transmission from your director of cyber intelligence 3 days ago. She reached into her briefcase and placed a thick, heavy manila folder onto the table. We have the routing numbers for the fraudulent Apex Solutions shell company. We have the deleted server logs proving Trevor's localized breach. And we have your emails plotting to frame your daughter for the federal audit failure. Marcus backed away from the table. His survival instinct kicked in. Raw and ugly, he pointed a trembling finger directly at Trevor. It was him. Marcus screamed, his voice cracking in sheer panic. He made the changes. I am just the CEO. I do not oversee the code. My son is a liar. Arrest him. Not me. Trevor stared at his father, his eyes wide with horrified betrayal. The golden boy was finally being sacrificed by the king. Marcus's face drained of blood. His jaw went completely slack. The billionaire titan shrank into a terrified, hollow old man in the span of 30 seconds. Panic consumed Trevor. He mumbled a frantic, incoherent excuse about needing to check the physical servers and bolted from the boardroom. My security cameras tracked him sprinting down the concrete stairwell into the basement. His digital keycards were completely dead. Desperation took over his fragile mind. He pulled out a physical brass key he had secretly copied from the head janitor months ago. He violently shattered the secondary glass security panel with a fire extinguisher to bypass the biometric scanner, ignoring the lacerations on his hands. He plugged a black flash drive into the main terminal, attempting to deploy a destructive wiper malware to erase the evidence of his theft before the FBI could seize the drives. He did not realize I had migrated all the authentic corporate data to an off-site, encrypted cloud server the night before. The physical servers sitting in that basement were nothing but a honeypot. A decoy system I had legally, officially linked to the Department of Defense classified testing network. The exact millisecond Trevor executed his malware. A blaring, ear-piercing siren echoed through the entire building. He had just launched a direct cyber attack on simulated United States military infrastructure. The FBI agents stormed the basement with their weapons drawn before Trevor could even pull the flash drive out of the port. Trevor dropped to his knees. He wept uncontrollably, screaming for his father as the heavy steel handcuffs snapped shut around his wrists. Marcus was detained in the boardroom upstairs, clutching his chest. I gently closed my laptop. The silence of my apartment wrapped around me like a warm, protective blanket. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Trevor Bennett pleaded guilty to 2 felony counts of violating the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act and 1 count of federal evidence tampering. The federal judge looked at him with absolute disgust and showed zero leniency. Trevor was sentenced to 8 years in a maximum security federal penitentiary, with eligibility for parole only after serving 6 full years. The court also ordered him to pay $400,000 in financial restitution, money he absolutely did not have, now that his assets were frozen. Marcus fared even worse. The federal government permanently stripped his high-level security clearances. He was indicted under the False Claims Act and charged with massive wire fraud. The federal fines were catastrophic, totaling over $14 million. The board of directors convened an emergency meeting and ousted him unanimously, erasing his name from the company letterhead forever. His accounts were frozen. His luxury estates in Westlake Hills were seized by the bank, and his precious, carefully curated reputation was reduced to a humiliating cautionary tale on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. The defense tech community blacklisted the Bennett name entirely. 6 months passed. The suffocating summer heat of Austin finally gave way to a crisp autumn breeze. I walked to my mailbox at the end of my driveway and found a standard issue, rough paper envelope stamped by a federal correctional facility in Fort Worth. It was from Trevor. I opened it right there on the sidewalk. The letter was written in cheap blue ink on lined paper. The handwriting was frantic, the ink smudged by sweat or tears. Morgan, it began. The food here is inedible. They lock us down for 20 hours a day. The guards do not care who I am. Dad's lawyers will not return my phone calls. He froze my commissary account to pay for his own defense team. I am sleeping on a thin mat, and I am terrified. You have to send me $5,000. You have to call the warden and explain that I am not a violent offender. We are blood. Morgan, I am still your brother. Please do not abandon your family when we need you the most. I read the desperate words twice. For 10 years, they had treated me like a broken cash machine. Now, sitting in a concrete cell, stripped of his custom suits and his penthouse, he still felt completely entitled to my money and my labor. He had learned absolutely nothing. My heart rate stayed perfectly, peacefully flat. I walked back inside my house, dropped the letter straight into the mechanical paper shredder, and turned on my electric kettle. I did not owe him a response. I did not owe him my anger, my pity, or my money. My total, unbroken silence was the final word. I did not just survive their spectacular collapse. I built my own unshakable foundation on top of the rubble. I launched an independent cybersecurity consulting firm under my own terms. I hired brilliant engineers and dedicated analysts who valued quiet integrity over loud pedigree. We share our profits fairly. We respect personal boundaries. And we ferociously protect each other. One Friday evening, my lead engineer, David, the same audiovisual technician who quit the morning of the federal raid, hosted a barbecue in his backyard. I stood on his wooden patio, holding a paper plate of smoked brisket, listening to my team laugh genuinely and debate coding languages under the string lights. There was no suffocating tension. There was no underlying threat of betrayal or theft. I finally realized what real, enduring peace actually felt like. It felt boring in the absolute best possible way. I am breaking the fourth wall now to speak directly to you. If you are listening to this story right now, you might be the invisible workhorse in your own life. You might have a Marcus or a Trevor draining your energy, demanding your absolute loyalty while offering nothing but cruel criticism in return. Let us talk about the brutal reality of the scapegoat and the golden child dynamic. Narcissists do not see their children, their siblings, or their employees as independent human beings. They see us as disposable appliances. When the appliance works, they ignore it. When it stops working, they kick it. And when it outshines them, they try to destroy it. The golden child is never actually loved. They are simply utilized as an extension of the narcissist's ego, paraded around like a shiny trophy. Because they are never held accountable. They never develop a spine. They never learn how to solve complex problems, how to endure failure, or how to survive a storm. They are weak, fragile creatures living in glass houses. But the scapegoat is forced to carry the weight of the entire family's dysfunction. By forcing the scapegoat to carry all the heavy burdens, the narcissist accidentally trains the scapegoat to become incredibly strong. While Trevor was drinking champagne and taking credit for my work, I was building mental calluses. I was learning how to navigate the dark, how to build infrastructure, and how to survive. When the system collapsed, Trevor shattered like glass because he had no substance. I survived because I was built out of iron. I want you to remember 3 critical rules. Rule number 1. Blood is a biological fact, but loyalty is a behavioral choice. Stop setting yourself on fire to keep people warm who constantly complain about the smoke. You do not owe your sanity, your finance, or your future to someone just because you share a genetic bloodline or a last name. Respect is earned through actions, not demanded through guilt. Rule number 2. Silence is only a weakness if you allow it to be. Abusers expect you to scream, to cry, and to fight back emotionally because that gives them an opportunity to gaslight you and label you as crazy. When you remove your emotion, you remove their primary ammunition. Let them talk. Let them boast. Let them dig their own graves while you quietly, methodically gather your receipts. Rule number 3. You cannot heal in the exact same toxic environment that broke you. The ultimate revenge is not watching your abusers fall from grace. The ultimate revenge is waking up one morning and realizing you no longer care that they did. True power is walking away from their broken dynamic and building a completely new table where they are never, ever invited to sit. Have you ever been the invisible backbone of a family or a company that absolutely refused to see your immense worth? How did you finally draw the line? Pack your bags and walk away. Share your story in the comments below. Your personal testimony might be the exact blueprint someone else desperately needs to finally escape their own toxic dynamic. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about reclaiming your power. And always remember, true honor is built, not inherited.